Hey everybody, Texas Trucker here, Lance's Performance Shop, LoneStarMopars.com. You may not realize it, but it's been a while since I've been out here able to record or do anything. Currently December 11th. Don't know why I constantly reference the dates when it just throws things off, because this is a Labor Day tool haul. Not this, but what you're about to see. So, obviously, like, no rush for this stuff, mainly because the Craftsman's still kicking. And we just sort of take all of this in when it's in stock and there's sales, and slowly over time the payoff will happen, and we'll just come out and we'll open the box or the cart and we'll be like, wow, this is really cool. And we'll have the satisfaction of knowing that we basically like cheapskated our way into doing all of it, which is extra cool in my opinion. But this is kind of where we left off with some of this stuff, right? So we added the long. This has kind of become my go-to. Still, the stubby has its places, but this is much more, how shall we say, like, comfortable to use the rest of the time, right? So like 95% of the time, this is kind of what I go to. Right here, the fancy black aluminum rail. These are Zeal sockets. These are like the official Zeal. You pay a little extra for them. These are super stubby. Okay, this is metric 7 to 19. I think it skipped to the 9 or something. But we have the super nice rail, and it's magnetic, and it's kind of like, man, this kind of sucks, because where we left off, if you don't recall, with this orange and white thing, that is a prototype friction peg socket holder from Mechanics Time Savers, right? So they sent us the orange for metric, and they sent us an orange for SAE, and that's it. Those don't exist. This is two out in the wild, and there might be like one or two more at their facility. And I'm hoping that those come to production, because that would be super cool. But what we have in this shallow segment is the special sockets from Koken, the waveform stuff, you know, sort of my hopes is to protect paint. Basically, they're used for high-end fasteners, if you will, you know, so you don't like mar them up and scoff them and things like that. But the original plan was to sort of like compile them in that manner, you know, like, you got to realize, okay, well, my bread and butter is like 1980 and older stuff, right? Sweet spot being like late 50s through late 70s. If we want to be more specific, like 66 to 74, okay? And that would be Chrysler, Dodge, Plymouth, you know, things along those lines. And we don't have metric fasteners. Sometimes you can get them to fit, but it's not intentional, it's not by design. So this sort of ties in more with the late model stuff for me. I know most people spin this crud at work. I'm still 100% old school, right? So I try to kind of thriftily approach it while doing things that are cool and unique and gonna stretch the buck, you know, as much as I can, if you will. That's why I've got like super stubby, and then you've got like a specialty fancy thing. Why don't I have those for SE? Well, they don't make either one in SE, which is kind of a shame. Hopefully that changes in the future. But getting back to the point at hand, that's sort of like your precursor and your build-up, because with this, keep in mind, this is a Labor Day. I'm sitting here, right behind me, I've got Black Friday stuff, but right now we got to cover the Labor Day stuff, so that's what we're going to do. And we're going to get going with Koken part number RS3405M/12. Some of you, if you've been paying attention, you're going to know these things. It's also linked down below how to make jack off of that. It's strictly there for your convenience. This is a pretty good little set here, okay? So if you know anything, RS, that's going to be what? Railed set. You got an M in there, so you know it's metric. And then if you're thinking like, doesn't the end mean the number of pieces? And that's also correct. Stuff in the middle kind of tells you your drive size and your overall height, you know, sort of short, you know, standard, semi-deep, deep, that type of stuff, right? And if you've pieced it together, this is what we have here, okay? Now, this is what I want you to pay extra careful attention to. This is a 12-piece set of shallow sockets. No skips in this one. 8 to 19. There's a 9 right there. So you have 8 through 19 literally with no skips. And you're thinking like, oh yeah, that's probably expensive. No wonder you waited for a sale. You know, this thing's what is that, like $150 worth of sockets? This is the crazy thing about Koken, and I hope this doesn't change, but it might at some point in time. Granted, you got to realize, even though I've been using them for a while, across the board, you know, 3/8 primarily, I have had zero issues. I've been very, very impressed by them, but I've also not, I mean, we haven't crossed like, what, a couple of years with them is all, so I don't have the background with these that I do, say, Ride or Proto, you know, that I'm comfortable to put my name on type of stuff. That said, zero issues thus far. And the thing that I love about Koken is they're reasonably priced. You're getting quality, but you're doing so at a really good price point. If this, I mean, even if we come in here, Stavil and Gador, especially metric, you can kind of catch some deals, right? And it's a weird deal. Their shallows are actually pretty competitive. It's just when you get into the deep, like, the price ratchets exponentially. It's a lot to take in, I'll tell you. But in this case, you're probably sitting here and thinking like, okay, well, you know, 120 maybe, that would be a great deal on those, right? You know, that 12-piece set, $10 yeah, 120. That's my final answer. Well, you would be shooting yourself in the foot, because this is about half of that. $66.24. That's the MSRP. That's before you take off my percentage for Labor Day sale, right? So 8 to 19. Granted, they are shallow, but $66. So this is more like $5 a socket, all right? A little bit more than that, but you get the gist of it. It's a pretty good pickup, and this is a situation, again, where I haven't really had any issues. Granted, you know, you have to factor time into that, but $66, man, that was just a great deal. Obviously, to pair this, if we so choose to, with the Mechanics Time Savers prototype, we would need a 7, but otherwise this sucker is home free. Again, it's just, man, you know, like if this was a tool truck, you would be this is definitely $100. You might be pushing 200 in some cases. But I gotta tell you, I've, like I said, been real happy with them. Again, some people not going to be a fan of the aesthetic of the sockets. I actually am. What we did here is it differentiates these. Again, Zeal stubbies, our specialty, you know, non-marring sockets there. These are 12 point. Again, I know a lot of people hate 12 point. I don't. Old school machine background, right? I can do things with 12 point that I can't do with a 6 point, and therefore it's useful to me. Also, there are, believe it or not, a lot of 12 point fasteners. Now, granted, with what I do, you know, I'm far, far more likely to deal with, you know, 12 point fasteners and SAE. But if we ever do crazy stuff, you know, like I've had a lot of people here recently, I guess, come into money or something, and they're, you know, hitting me up about forced induction on their 5.7 and 6.4 Hemis and stuff. I would assume, I've never looked into it, but I would assume, you know, a lot of the stuff I would be dealing with there on high-end fasteners would be metric, and that's where, again, stuff like this will come into play for me. So, that said, though, the overall aesthetic is kind of a cross between like a, I guess the closest German equivalent would be like Hazet, just in terms of the aesthetic design. What I mean by that, you've got like the nice matte finish, which I genuinely prefer. I get it. I know a ton of people want high luster chrome. They like it. It cleans easy. Some people just prefer the aesthetic of it. For me, it's not necessarily, the glare is nice. It's very rare that you have something blind you, you know, socket wise. It does happen, particularly like in dark places with lots of lights and whatnot. But the main thing I like, you just grip it better. You know, you have better tactile feel. It's sort of porous, you know, and you kind of have a little texture to it versus something smooth as glass type of a thing. But the finish out on these is nice. The main thing, not going to lie, that I personally value in a chrome socket, meaning non-impact, it's the wall thickness. And what do I want? Am I disappointed that these aren't like castle thick, you know, invader proof? Absolutely not. This is what I want to see. I want to see a thin walled socket. This is our 19. You can see you've got the 12 points. Shouldn't round anything off. They made a lot of advance. I know a lot of people, that's their main gripe. It rounds fasteners off. Engineering has changed, design has changed. You know, there's not many people still casting crud like they did in the 1940s, okay? So always pay attention to the marketing. You might learn a thing or two. But the wall thickness, this is what we look for with an impact, okay? You're going to have a thicker wall for obvious reasons. But with this is a situation where If we've got a tight plate like 19 millimeter, I'm thinking roughly 3/4. So maybe you've got a head bolt, right? And you can't fit your impact socket down in that direct, cavity, but this sucker can, and that's really what I look for again in a chrome socket. Sometimes, yes, it would be nice to have a thicker wall, but in the vast majority of cases, this is going to take me places an impact socket doesn't, and that's why we value the thin wall in this case. But 12 pieces, no skips on the rail. These are, I think I've covered this many times, but these are just the spring steel rails that Koken sends. It's nice they come on them, but there's two kinds basically, some that work and some that suck and don't hold the sockets. These are at least the decent ones if you plan to use them or need to use them temporarily type of a thing. They usually, on all iterations, you'll kind of have to shift the sockets around, but if you want to like mount these to a board or hang them on a peg, but whatever you're doing, there's at least two holes there that you don't have to drill yourself. So where do we go from there in this metric wonderland, you ask? Well, we're going to continue on. And this is kind of a weird deal that I did, but I'm not like 100% really set on what routes we're going. My initial plans was, of course, I don't know if I want to spoil it, but like, we're going to use German sockets, and there's not many sets, and they're not on sale, and then the sets that they do have like include ratchets and cases, and it drives the price up. It's just one thing about Japanese companies coming into an American marketplace is I feel like they cater their products more to the marketplace, whereas German companies is just kind of oh, well, you'll buy what we have, jerk. Kind of that type of thing. Not necessarily, that crude, but sort of like, well, why would we make a railed set? Why would we sell them shallow and deep together? They just, you don't need all those sockets. Buy the 4 or 5 that you need, and then just get the oddball when it comes up type of a thing. Whereas this, what we have here, is sort of more like you're accustomed to at your big box stores, Sears back in the day, Home Depot, Lowe's, Harbor Freight. You get a ton, you get the set, type of a deal. Whereas with the German company, it's almost like, well, if you just use the 7/8, the 10, the 13, the 17, and the 19, why do you need an 18 and a 16 and a 9 and all those other sizes that you're never going to use? That's not efficient. It's a waste of money. Just sort of like a clash of like cultures, I guess, right? Sort of just, it makes sense, to a German company to save you the consumer money and not sell you what you don't need. Whereas the Japanese come in and they're like, oh, okay, the Americans, they want to buy the whole freaking set, and we're going to sell them the set then. And that's sort of where you have your difference. That said, there are times where Koken will do things, just like this. You skip the 9. It's super nice, fairly comprehensive set, but you skip a 9. Some of you are going to be like, oh, I've got to have the 9. I'm going to go out to buy it individually. When we come in here with RS 3305X/8, some of you, again, you're going to be like, okay, wait. RS railed set /8, number of pieces, X. I think he said that was like semi-deep or something. Well, you're on the right track, and I'll just go ahead and throw it down for you. So what I did, and I don't know, sometimes, it works out for me, sometimes it doesn't. But what we have here, if I can find this on the little packing slip, it is going to be 3/8 square drive, 8 to 19, 12 point, and again, semi-deep, 8 pieces. So think about this. That was a full 12 pieces underneath there. This is 8 pieces. This is 4 fewer sockets. That means what? If we went 8 to 19 with 12 pieces with no skips, this means there's skips. 4 skips, in fact. Other thing, what's the price point? $66. We're just going to round down there for the 12-piece rail. And then this 8-piece semi-deep, $80.44. Now you're thinking like, ooh, that's a price jump. That sucks. You got 4 fewer sockets. You paid more. You got to realize they are a bit taller. And the other thing you need to do is, it's not often you find semi-deep sockets, right? You're not going to roll into Harbor Freight and come out with some for a great buy. You're not going to go to Home Depot if you're Husky, or, Cobalt or Craftsman if you go to Lowe's and, bring out a set of semi-deep. It's specialty, sort of higher end stuff. And that leaves it to what? You guessed it, you know, professional brands and tool trucks, and you're going to pay a lot for semi-deep sockets. So 8044, not that bad. So let's open it up. And do you have guesses? You probably have looked at the label, but you can't now, sucker. What they skipped? Well, think about it here. If we know on the Zeal set they skipped the 9, they probably skipped the 9 here. If that's what your consensus is, you would be correct. Now, coming in, think back, sort of like German companies do the same stuff. Again, Koken does this quite frequently as well, but if I throw this down, we've got an 8, we've got a 10, we've got an 11, again, which is sort of debatable, 12, 13, 14, and you're thinking like, what's the big deal? All that way, and then you're thinking like, wait, there's 2 sockets left, he's at 14. We know there's 3 more that are missing, and what would not be missing would be a 17 and a 19, right? And that's 100% correct. So that means we are missing a 15, a 16, and an 18. Now there's some overlap there with SAE sizes, but again, not everybody's going to have that handy. The main thing though that I want to highlight here, again, they are 12 point. So this is going to get me in shallow places. This will get me in slightly deeper places. Would it have been smarter to pair this just shallow and deep? Possibly. Are there advantages to semi-deep? Yes. Have I tried in the past to just get by with semi-deep sockets? Yeah. For the most part, it works. Sometimes you'll have to, you know, do a little maneuvering with a short extension or something to get where you want to go. But for the most part, it is definitely doable. So what I want to highlight here, though, here's our 12-piece rail set, $60 a sockets from Koken. Here's our 8-piece semi-deep. You can see the height difference there, sort of. We'll compare and contrast at a better angle for you in a second. But 12 pieces for $60, 8 pieces for $80. And again, that is before, can't stress this enough, before the sale price. If you got to have something, it's fine to purchase it, you know, and it's not on sale. But if you can be patient, Koken, they have pretty frequent sales, and that's when I would advise that you strike. That's when I would advise that you pull the trigger. Now, the downside is if, say, that you miss a day or two of the sale and you come in, still going on, these Zeal sockets might be gone. The 12-piece rail might be gone, and then I don't know that you can back order from there, is why I tell you that. I kind of don't think you can. Don't hold me to that, but I think that's where I was going with that. So that's sort of the catch-22 on that front. But continuing on here, well, guess what? I can't have this happen here. So will I need a 15, 16, and 18, or a 9? I don't know. But we're going to have them covered because it would just bother me. It's one of those things that would legitimately bother me. So if you're curious, if you were to buy singular individual sockets from Koken, they're going to come in a bag like that. No protection, no rolling, nothing crazy. But again, I mean, these are bought to work, so I'm not too terribly concerned. Right here, we have got our 15. Right here, we have got, you would guess the 18, you would be 100% correct. We have got here the 16 and the 9. So that's where we come in. Now, prices on those suckers, again, I'll have these linked, that way I don't have to waste your time with part numbers right now. But the 9mm, $9.56, so sub $10, kind of right where you would expect it. And then coming in, the 15 and the 16 would be $10.72. And then the big one, the 18, $10.92. So all very, very close in price, which is, again, nice to see. So first thing first, we're going to come in, we're going to go big. Go big or go home, right? Going to get this off the spring steel clips, which I've gotten to where I hate. To be fair, that's, you know, all I had for years and years and years. And my Craftsman sockets are still on them, and those have held up. Like I said, there's a lot of the people hate these rails for various reasons, but one is just that the clips suck. They're like terrible. Not all of them are bad. Some of them are still decent quality. So the ones I got, I don't know, they probably came from Sears, I would assume, but they've held up for years and years and years. So there are a few that are sort of worn, but, you know, like I had to knock some clips off another one. I can just cycle them back. That's why you hang on to them. But what I want to showcase right here is just the difference between the shallow and the semi-deep. So it's very hard to, like put this on a flat surface with the camera pointed down, but I think you get the idea. And, I've gone over the dimensions before. I don't have the catalog out here because I have it in my bedroom. Nighttime reading material, but that's it. That's really all the differences. Again, are you better off going with, I'll tell you what I had planned to do, okay? The initial, like, oh, this is so cool, I'm a genius idea, was to run the super shallow Zeals. You pay a little bit more money for them, but, come in handy, and then just run a semi-deep and be done with it. And, there are some shortcomings there. Again, are you better off maybe with this super shallow and then maybe like a semi-deep and then a deep? I don't know. You can truthfully, you can get by with shallow and the deep, but semi-deep is nice to have type of a thing. So that's the route I took there. But semi-deep, again, wall thickness going to be just the same as this 19 millimeter. That's something else that I like, is consistency. If you buy the shallow first, because it's the entry-level price point, it's the cheapest, it's complete, comprehensive, 12-piece, no skip, and you love it. If you were to come in and buy the semi-deep, you're going to have the same wall profile. Same thing. If you just like, I don't need semi-deep, I'm going to get the deep, it's a better use of my money. Boom, same wall profile. Why is that important? Because there's a lot of like lower tier brands where maybe you start out and you're like, I'm gonna see if I like these, and this is awesome and you love it, and then you're like, well, I'm gonna go get the deep sockets, they're on sale right now, and you do, and you throw them in your trunk or something, and then you have your, I don't know, belt tosses off the water pump, but you drive around with spare belts. You just need to loosen the alternator, and put the thing on, and you grab your deep one. And let's say that you've sort of got like a Chrysler style, right? And you're coming in here and your wall is hitting and you're like, what? This is impossible. I can't believe it. And then you go and you get your shallow and, you reach for your deep for a reason, because the shallow is going to hit the stud and it's going to bottom out and you can't get to the nut. And you sit there and you're like, well, what in the world? And you grab this one and then you grab that one and like, this is significantly fatter, right? It's just how it works. I can't explain it. You would think places would be consistent, but not all of them are. So when a place is, I like to highlight that because it is a selling point. You want consistency across the board, right? So that is kind of it for this. I decided to sort of split this up. Yes, there's a few more items here that we could throw in, but it made sense to do this. So now we come to the point of what in the world? I know I've asked you before, some of you had some good thoughts on it. Like, I really want to use that because it's like a prototype, I don't care, like eventually I'm sure it'll wear down some, and the stubs won't hold as well, but it's like I don't want it to just go to waste and hang out in the box with nothing in it, right? I'm kind of the mindset like the rail is too nice. If it wasn't magnetic, I think I would be willing to rip them off and have your sort of two lines of specialty stuff, super stubby, and then your waveform crud, right? But as is, and then the other thing, like, do we just want to go ahead and like, I just have to buy a 7, and we could totally do that, and we could have it fully populated, shallow and semi-deep, but then what happens if I catch the deep on sale, right? We don't have a third row. So that's kind of where we stand now. Before we get off on too much of a tangent here, pairing this with the Wobble Fix, which I love, incredibly tight. Again, this is in the fixed mode, if you will. Come back out to wobble. Really, really good. I've pulled these off a few times, obviously inadvertently. I'm talking about like a work scenario, not here on the bench, but it is pretty rare, and again, the articulation is very nice. The crazy thing, though, when you pair Koken with Koken, and this should be with all brands in my opinion, but like the fitment is just stupid good. When you check it, the ratchet is so fine that you almost, it's so light of a back drag that you basically, as you try to check it, you wind up turning the socket. But the fitment is stupid good on these things, and again, you can pair it with their Wobble Fix extensions, which we have several of, and again, you can kind of pick your poison, go to town in whatever manner you are so inclined to do. But that's about it. Again, we've covered the sockets extensively. I tried to hit on the highlights for you. The main thing here is just like, this was a really good buy. So all in, again, we got semi-deep sockets, $80, shallow sockets, $60, Went ahead and completed this set out. We'll just call out like 10 bucks a socket, so we added 40, essentially 120 for the semi-deeps, 8 to 19, no skips, and then 60 here. So we would be sitting at around 180. Divide that out per set, $90 a rail. Again, 8 to 19, no skips, 90 bucks, shallow and semi-deep. That's a pretty good deal. And then you factor on top of that, we shaved a ton off by way of the promotion. Just real quick, rough sale times, obviously Black Friday most recently, Labor Day, sometimes Halloween, something in that range, fall type of a thing, Father's Day, sometimes like a summer Memorial Day type of a deal, standard holidays. Seems like they did something around Valentine's Day even. So the bottom line, if you don't have to have it right now, if you can give yourself 6 to 8 weeks, you're probably going to be able to catch a sale. So again, another great source for Koken would be DRPD. I've started buying a lot from them in part because their prices are a little bit better, and then factor in the sale and it becomes a lot better. The downside, they don't stock any 12-point. They can get them. They will totally order them for you. I'm not sure if they would let you do that on the sale. I would think they might, but don't hold me to that. But I did ask him, I'm like, hey, you don't have 12-point sockets on your site, man. And I said, hey, tell us what you want, we'll get it for you. So that's great to know. But again, if it's something that you've patiently, if you can get a sale price on Koken, it's obviously not going to be as good. It's going to be pretty dadgum good, especially compared to other brands. And again, for what I have perceived as a very, very quality socket in the short time I've had it, I've been very happy with the ratchets as well. Haven't really had anything disappoint me thus far, so that's great on that front. But I believe that covers everything we needed to cover here. I can finally have a little bit more drawer space over there in the new boxes, and I can move these over, I guess, to the cart. That's where these have been hanging out. And we'll take it from there. And really wanting to pick up another box, but that's another story. It's got all kinds of crazy ideas in my head. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this stuff. If you've grabbed them, 6-point, 12-point, what would you do with the MTS deal? Would you just screw it and buy a bunch of Koken rails and magnetize the world type of a thing? Whatever you want to talk about, feel free. But once again, LoneStarMopars.com is the website. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all three at Lone Star Mopars. With that said, thanks so much for watching. I hope you scored some great deals on Labor Day, and then here, since I'm out here right before Christmas, I hope you got some great deals on Black Friday, and you'll probably not see this until well after Christmas, but I hope you have yourself a very Merry Christmas, and who knows, maybe scored some great deals on Koken. So, with that said, I'll quit rambling. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you back here for more action from the shop.